How are you guys doing? Today is Thursday, March 25th, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an elite profile on Hyun-jin Ryu, the elite starting pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays, who has become one of the best pitchers in two different leagues, which is a very rare feat to do so, and he's continuing to get better. He's playing in a completely different league, and this will be his second year going into the American League, so this will be a very impressive year going forward. So with that said, if you're unfamiliar with Hyun-jin Ryu, he's been in the MLB since I want to say 2013, because he came from the Korean League, and he's kind of come off and on for the Dodgers. If you're familiar with Hyun-jin Ryu for the Dodgers playoff runs, I mean, he was one of the middle of the rotation pitchers, and he didn't really ascend. He didn't really jump up into being one of the MLB's best pitchers until towards the end of his stay. And then he went on to Toronto and actually kind of killed it there. If you've never seen him before, if you've never seen him, a little round set. He has a very commanding presence, and he's a lefty, and his pitching style, I would say, is just more, it's just very crafty. He's very sneaky with his pitches, doesn't really hit high speeds unless you really need him to. He can hit about mid-90s, but at the same time, like, his best curves are his 82 mile per hour sliders, his 79 curveballs, you know what I'm saying? He will make batters swing and miss and look silly. And the fact that he's been able to do this for so long and has been able to stretch two leagues, I think, is nothing short of elite. So, just to get right into his background, he's originally from South Korea. He would get his call up to play in the Korean baseball organization, the KBO, in 2006, his age 19 season, in his very first season in the league. He would finish with a 18-6 record, a 2.23 ERA, and he would pitch 201 innings, allowing 150 hits and striking out over 200 batters. The first time he'd ever throw 200 strikeouts in a season. And of course, with this, Hyun-jin Ryu for 2006 was named. Or after he was named, he was the ERA champion in the KBO. He was the strikeout champion in the KBO. Not to mention, he had the most wins, so that gave him the triple crown in the Korean baseball organization in his very first season in the league. He went on to be an all-star. He was also the Rookie of the Year, and he was also named the MVP of the entire league, and he was also given a Golden Glove too. So I don't know how much more you can do than that. And then I guess after that, I can kind of just run through what he did with the rest of his tenure. And the rest of his time with the Hanwha Eagles, he would go on to make 7 All-Star games in 7 straight seasons from 2006 to 2012. That was the only MVP that he would win. He would win the Golden Glove again in 2010. He would win in his 7 years in the Korean baseball organization. He would lead the league in strikeouts 5 of those times. And then he would also have the lowest ERA in the league in 2010 to give a sense of what he was doing in Korea. He was virtually dominating, showing that he was one of the best players that they had ever played. So he decided to make the move and jump to the U.S. And once he jumped to the U.S., he would make his debut with the Los Angeles Dodgers in 2013. So it would kind of be a little bit of something for him. So in 2013, as a rookie in the MLB, he would go on and start 30 games for a Los Angeles Dodgers team that would finish with the best record in the NL West. And not to mention, this is the beginning of the Dodgers playoff push, so it might have been started with the addition of Hyun-jin Ryu, who knows. And this was also the year that Clayton Kershaw won his second Cy Young, so you're adding another good pitcher into that lineup, you know what I'm saying? But in this season, Hyun-jin Ryu would finish with a 14-8 record in his first season with an ERA of just 3. He would throw 2 complete games, one of them being a shutout. In the 192 innings he pitched, he allowed 182 hits, which is something, he allowed less hits than innings pitched, which is a very impressive feat. And he struck out 154 batters, less strikeouts than innings pitched, but you're not going for the strikeouts. Your main goal is to not let people score. He would finish 4th in Rookie of the Year voting, and once the Dodgers made the playoffs, they would end up beating the Braves in the NLDS, and then they would end up losing to the Cardinals in the NLCS, and this would be the year that the Cardinals went to the World Series and lost to the Red Sox, just to give a sense of where where that was. But as Hyun-jin Ryu was growing, you could see a transition into his second year with the Dodgers. In 2014, he would start 26 games for a Los Angeles Dodgers squad, who finished with the best record in the National League West for the second year in a row. They had 2 more wins than they did the previous season. And then specifically in this season, Hyun-jin Ryu, he would go on to finish with a 14-7 record. Roughly, he had the same amount of wins as the year before, 1 less loss, a 3.38 ERA, which is a little bit higher than what it was the year before. He went on to pitch 152 innings, allowing 152 hits, the exact amount, and he went on to strike out 139 batters as well. So he would still show that he was a very good starting rotation pitcher, but it would get a little bit tough. He would end up, and this would transition into his next season for the Dodgers. In 2015, he began he had to shut down in spring training with back tightness, and then he was placed on the disabled list, and then he had to undergo surgery, and then he had another surgery to repair his shoulder labrum, and with that, he would be completely out of the 2015 season, and he would barely come on. He would join the Dodgers in 2016 for maybe a game, but then he was put back on the DL after that game. So this would transition into his next full season. After 2014, his next full season in the MLB would come in 2017. He would go on to start 24 of the 25 games he would play in a season where the Dodgers would finish with the best record in the National League West. This would also be the first year they made the World Series, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. This is the year that Bellinger won Rookie of the Year. In this season, Hyun-jin Ryu would go on. He would post a 5-9 record in those 25 games. He had a 3.77 ERA, which up until this point was the highest ERA he'd ever posted in a full season in his MLB career. In 126 innings pitched, he allowed 128 hits, a couple more hits than innings pitched. He also struck out 116 batters, so of course this was his first full year back, so he was still kind of returning to form. But once the Dodgers made the playoffs, Ryu was no longer placed on the starting, he was not placed on the playoff rotation, which of course would motivate him to get even better next season. In 2018, in his fourth full season with the Los Angeles Dodgers, he would start 15 games in a season where the Los Angeles Dodgers finished with the best record in the National League West. This would be the 6th year in a row, and they won 12 less games in the previous season. But in this season, Hyun-jin Ryu would put up a pretty monster season. In those 15 games, he put up a 7-3 record with a 1.97 ERA. He only pitched 82 innings because, of course, that season was riddled with injury too. But in those 82 innings, he allowed 63 hits and struck out 89 batters. As once he hit his 30s, he started jumping into really like this elite category in the MLB as well. He started to see the form that he saw when he was dominating Korea as a teenager. This would lead them into the playoffs, where of course they would beat the Braves in the NLDS. They would beat the Brewers in the NLCS, and after losing to the Dodgers the previous year, this year they would lose to the Red Sox in the World Series. So of course Hyun-jin Ryu would get the short end of that stick, and this would transition into his third year back off of his super long injury. And coming into 2019, Hyun-jin Ryu's age 32 season, he was actually able to make his only All-Star appearance as a starting pitcher. He would start 29 games in a season where the Dodgers would finish with a 106-56 record, with the best record in their franchise's history, I believe, or with their most wins in their franchise's history, the year that Cody Bellinger won MVP. But I get a little ahead of myself. In this season, Hyun-jin Ryu would post a 14-5 record in those 29 games, posting a 2.32 ERA, which is the lowest ERA in the National League. The first full season, which he had a sub-3. And I mean, this was kind of carrying off the momentum from the last season. In the 182 innings he pitched, he allowed 160 hits. That's a difference of about 20. And then he struck out 163. He had less strikeouts in innings pitched, but he still had a lot of them. With 163 strikeouts, that's the most strikeouts he's ever put up in a full season before. He would finish second in Cy Young voting, and he would finish 19th in MVP voting. Once the Dodgers made it to the playoffs, they would lose to the Nationals in the NLDS the year the Nationals went all the way and won the World Series. This being the fourth year in a row they lost to the World Series champs. And then in 2020, after the Dodgers decided they needed space for Mookie Betts and they were making more moves, Hyun-jin Ryu would eventually see himself out of that, and he would sign a 4-year deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. And because this season was shortened due to COVID, the Blue Jays would only play 60 games on the year, and they had to play all their games in Buffalo. So Hyun-jin Ryu has yet to play a game for the Toronto Blue Jays in the city of Toronto. But getting back, he started 12 games in a season where the Blue Jays would go on and finish with the third best record in their division, the eighth best record in the AL in the American League. They finished with a 32-28 record. But in this season, Hyun-jin Ryu was the ace, and had there been an All-Star game, he would have made the All-Star game this year. He would, in those 12 starts, he would post a 5-2 record, a 2.69 ERA, the second full season in which he's posted a sub-3 ERA. His first season, he had an ERA at 3, so I guess that's his third season with an ERA of 3 or below, and then add 2018, his third straight season, full or complete or incomplete, with a sub-3. So you could see him starting to reach this level of consistency, and he only pitched 67 innings. In those 67 innings, he allowed only 60 hits, and he struck out 72 batters. The second time in his career, he's thrown more strikeouts than innings pitched. He would go on to finish third in Cy Young voting in the American League, as the Blue Jays would end up losing in the very first round to the Rays, who would end up going to the World Series and getting beat by the Los Angeles Dodgers the very season after Hyun-jin Ryu left the team, which is kind of sad. But at the end of the day, Hyun-jin Ryu found his situation in Toronto. He's most definitely the ace of that lineup, and with a really, really good young core around it, we could see this team just shoot up into amazing form sometime very soon. But I guess with all of this, all of these moments leading to where we are now, I think his numbers, his accomplishments, his stats, they speak for himself as to why Hyun-jin Ryu is one of the best baseball players in the world. And the most impressive part of it, at least to me, was that he was doing this in Korea beforehand. He completely changed leagues, completely different dynamic, different language, different system, and still was able to become an all-star and post multiple seasons with a sub-3 ERA, meaning that you are allowing less than 1 run every 3 innings you pitch, which means you can go through the lineup. He's averaging less than 1 run per rotation, if that makes sense. But with that said, I don't know if there's any more to say. I want to wish Hyun-jin Ryu a happy 34th birthday. And if you ever get a chance, check him out. He's wearing 99 for the Toronto Blue Jays. The Toronto Blue Jays, their first MLB matchup, I believe, will be on April 1st, as they will go to Yankee Stadium and play at the Yankees. I believe Hyun-jin Ryu will be the opening day starter for the Blue Jays, but we'll see. Thanks once again. I hope all is well, and peace out. I'll catch you with another segment after this, but thanks for listening, and once again, I hope everyone is staying well, and last but not just thanks for listening to my piece. Peace out. I'll catch you with a piece after this.